I'd like to read for you today an excerpt from the short story titled The Guest by Albert Camus. Albert Camus was a French-Algerian writer born in 1913, and the majority of his works were published in the 1950s and 60s during the Algerian War, which was the Algerian War for independence from France, Algeria having been a colony of France. As a Pied Noir, which is a French citizen born in Algeria, Camus found himself torn between siding with his heritage of France or his native country of Algeria during this Algerian War. He was very unsure how he felt about this war, and that's reflected in the story The Guest, as the schoolmaster Daru, who is also a Pied Noir, has to decide whether or not to take an Arab outlaw to the French police who's been brought to him by a French police officer. I believe this story is relevant in today's society because of the immigration law issues that have been brought up in the recent presidential election. I feel as though the immigrants that are living in our country today, who are in between citizenship, unsure of whether or not they're from their original country or should now consider the United States as their home, feel as though they're a guest inside this country. They don't know what to call their home. They don't know what to have allegiance towards. And having that feeling of being alone inside a large country such as this could be quite powerful. So without further ado, here is The Guest by Albert Camus. The Arab, leaning over the cement floor of the shed, was washing his teeth with 2 fingers. Daru looked at him and said, "Come." He went back into the room ahead of the prisoner. He slipped a hunting jacket on over a sweater and put on walking shoes. Standing, he waited until the Arab had put on his chesh and sandals. They went into the classroom, and the schoolmaster pointed to the exit, saying, "Go ahead." The fellow didn't budge. "I'm coming," said Daru. The Arab went out. Daru went back into the room and made a package of pieces of rusk, dates, and sugar. In the classroom, before going out, he hesitated in front of his desk, then crossed the threshold and locked the door. "That's the way," he said. He started toward the east, followed by the prisoner. But a short distance from the schoolhouse, he thought he heard a slight sound behind him. He retraced his steps and examined the surroundings of the house. There was no one there. The Arab watched him without seeming to understand. "Come on," said Daru. They walked for an hour and rested beside a sharp peak of limestone. The snow was melting faster and faster, and the sun was drinking up the puddles at once, rapidly cleaning the plateau, which gradually dried and vibrated like the air itself. When they resumed walking, the ground rang under their feet. From time to time a bird rent the space in front of them with a joyful cry. Daru breathed in deeply. The fresh morning light. He felt a sort of rapture before the vast familiar expanse, now almost entirely yellow under its dome of blue sky. They walked an hour more, descending toward the south. They reached a level height made up of crumbly rocks. From there on, the plateau sloped down, eastward, toward a low plain where there were a few spindly trees, and to the south, toward outcroppings of rock that gave the landscape a chaotic look. Daru surveyed the 2 directions. There was nothing but the sky on the horizon. Not a man could be seen. He turned toward the Arab, who was looking at him blankly. Daru held out the package to him. "Take it," he said. "There are dates, bread, and sugar. You can hold out for 2 days. Here are 1,000 francs, too." The Arab took the package and the money, but kept his full hands at chest level as if he didn't know what to do with what was being given to him. "Now look," the schoolmaster said as he pointed in the direction of the east. "There's the way to Tinuit. You have a 2-hour walk. At Tinuit you'll find the administration and the police. They are expecting you." The Arab looked toward the east, still holding the package and money against his chest. Daru took his elbow and turned him rather roughly toward the south. At the foot of the height on which they stood could be seen a faint path. "That's the trail across the plateau. In a day's walk from here you'll find pasture lands and the first nomads. They'll take you in and shelter you according to their law." The Arab had now turned toward Daru, and a sort of panic was visible in his expression. "Listen," he said. Daru shook his head. "No, be quiet. Now I'm leaving you." He turned his back on him, took 2 long steps in the direction of the school, looking hesitantly at the motionless Arab, and started off again. The Arab was still there. For a few minutes he heard nothing but his own step resounding on the cold ground, and did not turn his head. A moment later, however, he turned around. The Arab was still there on the edge of the hill, his arms hanging now, and he was looking at the schoolmaster. Daru felt something rise in his throat, but he swore with impatience, waved vaguely, and started off again. He had already gone some distance when he again stopped and looked. There was no longer anyone on the hill. Daru hesitated. The sun was now rather high in the sky and was beginning to beat down on his head. The schoolmaster retraced his steps, at first somewhat uncertainly, then with decision. When he reached the little hill, he was bathed in sweat. He climbed it as fast as he could and stopped, out of breath at the top. The rock fields to the south stood out sharply against the blue sky, but on the plain to the east a steamy heat was already rising, and in that slight haze Daru, with heavy heart, made out the Arab walking slowly on the road to prison. A little later, standing before the window of the classroom, the schoolmaster was watching the clear light bathing the whole surface of the plateau, but he hardly saw it. Behind him on the blackboard, among the winding French rivers, sprawled the clumsily chalked up words he had just read. "You handed over our brother. You will pay for this." Daru looked at the sky, the plateau, and beyond the invisible land stretching all the way to the sea. In this vast landscape he had loved so much, he was alone. Thank you very much for listening.